Hi, and welcome back to the Shane Plays Out of the Abyss Notes series as we continue our adventures into the Underdark with the D&D 5th edition Rage of Demons storyline, the tabletop component, which is Out of the Abyss, which are not only in the Underdark, which is all crazy anyway, but there's madness and Alice in Wonderland craziness going on and demon lords and all kinds of craziness. So, uh, we're still in the Whorlstone Tunnels under Gracklstugh. And I knew coming in here because we play 2 hours at a pop because we play at a store on in the evenings, roughly 6:30 to 8:30. We usually go till closer to 9. But it's 2 hours a pop. It's taken a while to get through the Whorlstone Tunnels, and I knew it would. So and last night, and I'll get into it here in a second, they had an opportunity to go ahead and leave. They've actually had two opportunities to leave, and they haven't. So they know from the main entrance, and then they found the sort of secret exit through the Dark Lake districts into the Dark Lake districts through kind of a sewer pipe kind of thing. And then now they found another exit last night, which I'll discuss. So they can leave whenever they want, but on the other hand, they know that there's areas of the tunnel they haven't, or the tunnels they haven't explored yet. So I'll talk a little bit about what happened last night. One thing that I regret, I was rereading my notes from last week, and the spectator that they fought when they fought the Darrow Savant and the spectator in the room that has the two, it's room 14 on the map in the Whorlstone Tunnels, but it's got the obelisk, big 50-foot tall obelisk, black obsidian obelisk kind of thing, and then on the other mesa it's got the dragon egg. When the spectator attacked, it was supposed to send all these mental, ooh, I can't wait to kill you. And when the obelisk is completed, all kinds of interesting things are going to happen. And I just completely botched doing that. And for effect, I wish I would have, but I didn't. So if you're running this, um, you know, I think it would have been a neat thing to do narratively, and I didn't. So I wish I would have. But anyway, live and learn. If I ever run it again, I'll try to remember to do the spectator. It's not a major component to the story, but it was just a neat. It would have been a neat, creepy effect. So, um, and also kind of hints that they're doing something with this obelisk. So, the obelisk, of course, is the um, it kind of teleports things, and I'll get into that here in a second as well. So, when they finished last week, they had just defeated the Darrow Savant, the female Darrow Savant, uh, who was like lightning bolting people and was actually a bit of a challenge. And they'd killed the spectator. And due to time, it's like, okay, we got to stop right there. So when we resumed last night, uh, it was okay, you guys, this is all that has just happened. So they did some searching around and investigating. And one of my characters, one of my players, ever since the idea of this dragon egg was introduced several sessions back when the keepers of the flame, who are the clerics that kind of manage Themberchod, the dragon that keeps the fires lit, and Gracklstugh for the smelting um, pits and whatnot. They were like, "Hey, the gray ghosts stole our dragon egg," and um, that guy was like, "Whoa, dragon egg!" So he's thinking, "I'm gonna have a pet dragon." Uh, and so last week when they came into the room that has the kind of two maces and the obelisk on one and the dragon eggs on the other, he's like, Yahtzee, bingo, got my egg. Um, and so that was something that he immediately he's like, I want to check out the egg. I want to make sure it's okay. And this egg is big. It's like 4 foot, 3 foot, 180 pounds. Um, and in the book, it doesn't indicate the exact circumstances, but it says if it's warmed up, it can't hatch until it's warmed up. I don't know. I guess that's up to the DM, or maybe there's some notes somewhere else that would explain how that works. But so he's wanting to hatch it, and it didn't come up last night. Like how do I hatch it? He's just like, oh, the egg, and he's checking, is it okay? Kind of thing. Um, so that there were some people checking out the egg. Somebody else checked out the Darrow, and by the note, she's got like a book that has a record of things that have been teleporting in because of this obelisk, and also a gold coin, which I gave him a perception check and they rolled really well. And I said, well, you realize this is an ancient coin from an above ground elven society. What would it be doing here? So I gave them, they rolled really well, and I just let them know that, hey, this coin is weird to be here, kind of a hint, stuff's teleporting in. So the deal with the obelisk, and it's like they lay a lot of interesting stuff about the obelisk out, but at this part of the adventure anyway, they don't really tie it all together. Basically, the obelisk is it has latent teleporting magic. I don't think that's its main function because it's unfinished. And there was a lump of metal from the alchemist lab a couple 2 or 3 sessions back that I even told the party last night because I gave them hint after hint. I was like, only because one character had checked out the desk in the alchemist lab where this lump of black metal is, and only they had ignored it and taken some scraps of recipes, alchemist recipes that were written Dwarven. But I kept mentioning, so there was the desk that, Melkor searched and da-da-da-da, and I mentioned it several times. And it's not super critical to the story, but for some reason, my party is usually really good about checking stuff out. But this room, this alchemist lab, both with the desk and also the side room that has the tunnel or the ladder going up where you can take a secret exit out of the Whorlstone Tunnels, they just weren't very adventurous and explory. I mean, they finally ended up doing it, but I thought they were just going to ignore all that stuff and keep going, which is fine because you got player agency. They can do what they want. But at the same time, I can without twisting their arm or without putting them on rails, I can gently encourage or whatever. Anyway, so last night, I straight out told the guys, I said, I said, I'm surprised you guys didn't search that desk because there was, and I said, you can't go back and get it now because I'm just telling you, just so you'll know, there's a lump of black metal on that could have interacted with this obelisk. And they're like, oh, well. But I was just doing that to kind of encourage them in the future to, make sure to search stuff. If it was super story critical and they missed it, I would have found a gentle way um, to kind of remind them and encourage them to do that, or another narrative way to make sure it happened. But I was just like, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. They're like, yeah, you're right. That room freaked us out. They're like, we just thought we were going to get attacked and there were monsters and we just wanted to get out of there. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So, anyway, uh, so the thing with the obelisk is, if you take that lump of black metal, which you'll either find in the alchemist lab or you'll find on Droki, depending on the timing of has Droki already made it through. If you touch it to the obelisk, it'll get absorbed into the obelisk, and one of the cracks and pits in the obelisk will fill in. So evidently, there's lumps of black metal kind of scattered throughout the Underdark that relate to this obelisk, and the Grey Ghosts have been kind of playing around with the obelisk, um, with the help of this Darrow Savant. I guess it's kind of confusing because there's a cult of Darrow Savants that have kind of split off from the main Darrow Savants, and the Darrow Savants are magic user Darrow. Basically, they're kind of a higher class of Darrow, that kind of a ruling class of Darrow in Gracklstugh. And there's a cult of Darrow that are in the Whorlstone Tunnels that have their own nefarious schemes. But then you also have the Grey Ghosts, and they've kind of learned, they kind of have we get along because we pretend each other don't exist kind of thing, because they don't have the same goals. They don't really like each other. So even though there was a Darrow Savant in this room that had the obelisk and the dragon egg, it's still the Grey Ghost. So I guess they just had a Darrow Savant helping them. I don't know. And the thing is there's some latent teleport magic in this obsidian obelisk, or obsidian-ish. It's an alien metal that's occasionally bringing items in, and those items are being sold in Gracklstugh, and they're like, hey, this is weird. So there's actually a sort of related side quest where somebody asks you to figure out where this stuff's coming from. So if you have that quest, if your party has that quest and they find this obelisk and all these clues that you're like, oh, okay, so now I can go back and tell them how this stuff's making it in. My party did not have that side quest. So all they knew is like, hey, there's this really cool obelisk here. So a couple things happened. One, one party member fell in love with the egg, smooching all over it. How do we get out of here? There's some discussion on, do we take the egg with us? Do we leave it here for now? And they ultimately decided to take the egg with them through a combination of one of the characters is one of the players' characters is a tinkerer. So I said, yeah, it's fine. You can throw something together to carry the egg on, like a litter or something like that. And then the magic user can also cast Tensor's floating disc as a ritual. So through a combination of that, they're taking the egg with them. Now the obelisk, by the book, and I changed this a little bit, and I kind of think that the way I changed it is how it should be written. But you don't have to do what I did by any means as the DM. The guys, Chris Perkins and the others who wrote this adventure, know what they're doing. They're not dumb. They've been around. It's not their first rodeo. But I personally didn't like how they did this. Anybody who is trained or proficient in arcane or arcana uh, can automatically, by checking out this obelisk and messing with it, they can tell, hey, there's quasi magical energy kind of pouring out of it, out of these cracks and pits and stuff that are in it. And two, they're pretty sure that if they give it any sort of spell energy, that something will happen, but they don't know what. Uh, so a spell of any level cast into the obelisk will activate an effect, but they don't know what that effect is. So of course, the, the player that charged the red dragon, the adult dragon, as the second level and died, and then the player who walked into this room uh, and said hello and got lightning bolted by the Darrow, and basically died, but I allowed them to barely survive. And I told them last night, I said, I'm not going to do that for you again. I said, I interceded once, but I'm not going to keep interceding for you. And they're like, okay, cool, da da da. And so, well, my character, they're playing a young elf, like a 45-year-old elf or something like that. So they're like, my elf is an adolescent, so they're gonna play like an adolescent. I'm like, all right, that's fine. You can do whatever you want. Player agency and all that, but I'm not going to save them again if they kill themselves, or do something extremely rash that gets them killed, as they've been doing. But anyway, so they of course went, burp, I throw a ray of frost at the obelisk, and I was because it says in the book, I said, anybody on that mesa, there's two mesas, kind of raised areas in the uh, room. The one with the obelisk, they teleport out. Boop. So I said, hey, everybody, tell me where you're at. And, everybody had their figures on the map and all that. And there was one guy that was actually on the mesa with um, with this character who was about to do that. And they saw what was about to happen. And they said, I back up. So they backed up. So it worked out that only that one character who's throwing the spell, the female elf magic user, was on the mesa. So she said, I throw a ray of frost at it. I said, okay. So I grabbed her figure. It's a female player, or male player, female character. And I picked up the character, grabbed the miniature, and put it behind my DM screen. Said, okay. And then I went, okay, what do you guys do? And he's like, and, I did that on purpose to try to reinforce the surprise and to let it linger in his head, like, am I dead? Is my character dead? What's going on? To kind of reinforce, you take actions, there could be consequences. So in reality, what's happened is that character has teleported out to outside a gate of Gracklstugh. So, and then in the notes of the adventure say that you're pretty sure, if you have Arcana, you're pretty sure that um, the effect can be repeated, but it's probably not going to last for maybe just another week or two or something like that. Now, as I'm reading the notes for this part of the adventure, I think this is a one-way boop, teleport out, and you're gone. And it says it can be repeated, which to me indicates that if somebody else throws a spell and everybody's on the mesa, they can go too. But there's nothing about reversing it and coming back. So this is where I differ from how the adventure is written. That's a massive splitting of the party that it's not, you can't just come right back. I mean, you got to go through a gate, which is not easy to get through gates in Gracklstugh, even though they have the little pins from the dragon or the keepers of the flame that allow them, that still, you can't just pop right into Gracklstugh. And then you've got to get back through the Darrow city or the Darrow encampment and then go all the way through the Whorlstone Tunnels to get back to the cave, or you've got to go through the secret sewer entrance and work your way back. So it's not a given that they're just going to get right back together. So I've got all my party here, and I got one person way off on another part of Gracklstugh. So narratively, that's fine, but realistically, for everyone to have fun, that's not good because now I have one player that could theoretically just sit there by themselves for the rest of the night, or I've got to, hey guys, okay, now I got to go back to this guy. What do you want to do? Here's what's going on. Da, da, da. We got to do it in a way so both sides don't know what each other are doing. So what I did was I decided that if somebody else cast a spell at the obelisk, it would reverse the previous teleportation and bring the person back. And then if they did it again, then whoever's on the mesa gets teleported out again, invite, so on and so forth. It's a back and forth thing. And I changed that to give them the clue that if you want to bring this, that you guys can leave at this point if you want, but you have the option of staying together. So you can go back and forth as long as somebody is there to keep throwing spells at the obelisk. That was a decision I made. And they were, through deductive reasoning, they figured out what's going on. So, but they didn't know what was going to happen. So they were like, well, we've got to follow our party member. So they all got around the obelisk, and somebody threw a spell at it. We have a couple other people who aren't necessarily magic users, straight magic users, but they can cast spells. And they cast it, and she came back. And then they figured out through deductive reasoning that if we cast another spell, we would all go again if we're around the obelisk. So they had a long discussion. What do we do? We leave at this point. Do we take the dragon egg with us, et cetera, et cetera. And I also told narratively, at that point, I filled in the character or the player whose character teleported, said, here's what happened. You found yourself, you're pretty sure you were right outside a gate of Gracklstugh. And you were kind of starting to freak out, like, what do I do? How do I get back to my people? Wow, I'm all alone. This is kind of freaky. And then you suddenly, right about the time you were really starting freaking out, you teleported back. And you're like, woo, good. So that's kind of how we did that. Now, again, the way I did the obelisk teleporting is not the way it's written in the adventure. Okay, that's the way I chose to do it, to give the players more choice in whether they suddenly leave the Whorlstone Tunnels, because there was a lot of it that's unexplored. Now, if they decide to leave the Whorlstone Tunnels at that point, that's fine. I mean, they found the dragon egg, which was their main quest. They were also supposed to, quote unquote, find evidence that the Grey Ghosts are tampering with sort of the fabric of reality, which is, I guess it's possible with the obelisk thing, but really it's more of a paranoid thing with the Keepers of the Flame because of the madness that's permeating the Underdark from the demon lords being set loose. So that's kind of what happened with that. And I guess if you wanted to make it a one-way trip and just go ahead and get them out of the Whorlstone Tunnels and they don't have any choice but to go the long way to get back in, you could do that too. I mean, that's fine, but that's what I chose to do. Now, from that point, they had a lot. And in fact, there was a pretty good player discussion on, do we leave? Do we stay? Do we take the egg? There were some people like, no, don't take the egg. And, there was some. So what I do in points like that, I don't sit there and babysit the players. I let them figure it out. I let them know what their options are. And then since we play at a store, I take those opportunities. I'll go up to the front of the store and visit with the owner and their employees or whatever for 5-10 minutes, whatever, and give the players time to figure out what they want to do. So that's what I did. I walked out, chatted with, hey, what's going on? Da-da-da. We sit there and chatted. And then, I gave it a few minutes. And one of my players walked in and I said, hey, did you figure out, what you want to do? And he's like, man, I don't care. They can figure out whatever they want and I'll go along with it. So I thought that was fine. Yeah, so he kind of came in and he's like, yeah, I don't, whatever. So he doesn't care which way they go. So I thought that was kind of funny. So we just chatted a little while. And as a small aside, I've been wanting to buy the new, I've been holding off, not wanting to spend the money, but I finally did last night. I bought a couple of the new Dungeons and Dragons minis. I can't even remember. Is it Monster Menagerie? Icons of the Realm? I don't know. But I bought a couple of those. I like to get the little minis. I think the new minis that D&D's been putting out are pretty well done. Nice paints and nice sculpts and all that. And I got my main stuff, I got a Displacer Beast, I got a Boulette, got some other minor stuff, but I got a chase figure. I got the Bryn Lightfinger's chase figure, the invisible kind of clear one, which was cool. I was like, hey, and I almost didn't even realize I had it because it was all wrapped in bubble wrap. I almost threw it away, and I was like, wait, I got another little chase figure popped it out. Well, the store owner Jay at Imagine, he's got a Larethar chase figure, the little invisible clear plastic Larethar, and I really like Larethar from the Sword Coast Legends game. So we're talking about trading that. So but evidently Larethar is worth about 13, 14 bucks right now, and Bryn is worth about 7 or 8. So anyway, I'll probably trade for Larethar because I like Larethar as a character. I think that was really neat. But anyway, that's an aside. So we went back in. They decided to. Sorry, I'm keeping an eye on messages coming in as well. So that's why I kind of keep looking off to the side. Anyway, so they decided they wanted to stay and keep exploring and take the egg with them. Okay, fair enough. I didn't ask them why or anything. It's okay. That's your plan. Oh, and another thing we had, another quick note from a DM's perspective. I had a new player show up last night, which is not unusual because we play on behalf of a store, and he was super cool, really nice guy. I hope he keeps coming. But he showed up with a first level character pre-generated, and we're at third level. This party's getting close to fourth level. In fact, by the time I divvy up the past few sessions worth of experience, they may be at fourth level. Um, so I need to sit down and work all that out. But I said, hey man, I said, since you don't have a third level character ready yet, and he had rolled his character, and the way the rule in our group is, if you're going to roll, that's totally fine, but I need to see the rolls. So I said, you can do a point buy system, you can do the standard array, or if you're going to roll, I'll watch the rolls, and I just keep that consistent. Even if I think somebody's if Abraham Lincoln walked in, the most honest to keep it consistent and fair to every player, I watch the rolls. That's just how it is. So I said, would you be cool with playing Eldith, the dwarven NPC, for tonight, and then we can get you a player for next week? He was like, yeah, totally cool. So he played Eldith, who is sort of our standby character for if people show up or if we're short-handed and we need a melee player, somebody will take over Eldith. And I really like her as an NPC anyway. So anyway, just want to throw that out as a DM note. So we did all that, uh, and then they chose to continue adventuring, and they just by going through the map, they ended up at room 13, which is sort of a pit where Narak, the guy who's the Darrow cultist leader, not the Grey Ghost Thieves Guild leader, throws his failed experiments. So it's basically a pit full of zombies that is just absolutely saturated by Fair's Rest. And there's one Darrow kind of overlooking the pit to make sure that that the zombies don't get out or to kind of keep an eye on things. And the edge of the pit has spiked metal pieces to kind of help the zombies from not coming out and all that. So there's two ways into that. One is through a narrow tunnel that actually pops out into the pit. So you would walk out into the pit and all of a sudden there's zombies, or you can approach like they did from the top of the ledge and look down in. And what they did is they saw that single Darrow kind of staring down in there, and they all stealthed up. And one of the monks threw I can't remember the spell. It's a spell that gives everybody +10. I mean, I'd know it if I saw it. I'm just blanking on it. Like Path of the Silent or Pass Silently or something like that. And it gives everybody within a certain range +10 on their stealth. So it was like something straight out of a cartoon, Bugs Bunny cartoon. They just all kind of stealthed up next to the Darrow, and we're just kind of looking down in there with him. And the Darrow didn't notice. He's like, oh. And then Eldith, the guy who's playing Eldith, was off to the side. And he was like, psst, hey, Mac, you might want to look behind you. And I said, well, give me a persuasion, because he's trying to, kind of affect how this guy behaves. And he rolled like a natural 20. And so I had the Darrow like look over. He's like, oh, hey, man, what's up? Because the dwarf was so casual about, hey, man, you might want to look behind you. And Darrow's like, oh, hey, what's up? And he looked back down in the pit, and then he went, wait a minute. And he kind of turned around, and there's everybody around. He's like, whoop. And he realizes he's the way outnumbered, so he just drops his crossbow. Uh, so at that point, they were going to interrogate him and whatnot. Uh, One of the monks decided he wanted to grapple him. Everyone's like, don't grapple him, we've got him. But he wanted to grapple. So that went into combat. We rolled initiative. And since we rolled initiative, the Darrow won and he ran. But because of attacks of opportunity, they all did a beat down on him and decided to do non-lethal damage, so they knocked him out. Long story short, by because of the noise of Daryl running and all that, it attracted. There's 4 Grimlock zombies and there's 4 Duergar zombies, or 3 Duergar zombies. Now the Duergar zombies, the Grey Dwarf zombies, will only attack stuff that's in the pit. The Grimlocks will head towards noise and whatnot, so they kind of start shambling towards the, um, the cliff, and so we got into a minor combat there. So as you can see, suddenly I'm wearing a different shirt, and there's no light coming in through the window back there. So I'm actually recording this final part later. I had to stop earlier due to real life. But yeah, we're about wrapped up. They were looking over the ledge into the zombies, and the Grimlock zombies were starting to shoal towards them because of the commotion when the Darrow tried to run off. So they kind of got into where they were simultaneously blasting the zombies, and it took them a while to realize they were zombies. They're like, oh, Grimlocks, and because somebody made a check, and we're like, oh, those look like Grimlocks, and I kept saying, well, they're acting kind of weird, and they finally go, oh, they're zombies. Um, Even though I had said, it smells a lot like death and decay around here. Anyway, they kind of made short work of the Grimlocks who were trying to climb out of the pit and get up, and they basically woke the Darrow back up and slapped him around and threatened to throw him in the pit with the rest of the zombies if he didn't divulge, the information. So he filled them in. There's a cult. It's Narak is the guy who, runs it, and these are the failed experiments, and they're trying to spread madness among the stone giants and Gracklstugh to chaos and all that. So now they're like, oh, okay, so there's 2 major factions down here. I don't think that the party was really getting that before. Other notes, they did a short rest but not a long rest, so they're still on day 5. They're 1 pursuit level away from Ilvara catching up with them, which is almost certainly going to happen. They're so close on the pursuit level. I feel like they're going to keep exploring. They still have 3 Grey Dwarf zombies in the pit that they haven't dealt with yet. We had to, finish after they killed the Grimlocks and interrogated the Darrow. And there was some debate whether they kill him or not, and there was alignment discussion came out, which was interesting. I personally am a fan of alignment in D&D. I think it leads to role playing and kind of thinking, what would my character do? And as long as you can choose what alignment you want to be and then play that alignment, I'm fine with it. I don't think it's cool to say, hey, you have to be lawful good. But, as long as there's a little bit of flexibility in what alignment you play, I'm a fan of the system. And there's also like this little crawling hand down in the pit with the Fair's Rest that I guess it has a ring on it with magical properties that ties into another minor side quest that, once again, the characters didn't take. They didn't do a lot of side quests in Gracklstugh, but they are in the Whorlstone Tunnels knocking all this stuff out after meeting with the dragon. So other interesting notes, I think, it came up last night, and I think I need to do this, especially in areas that are extremely infused with the Fair's Rest, that magical energy. I think I need to start looking at wild magic. I think they mentioned that. I need to bone back up on that, but I think in heavily Fair's Rest areas in the Underdark, especially with the madness and the demon lords and all that, I think that there can be some wild magic effects. So I need to look at that. But this room was just evidently absolutely saturated with it. I've got my player who showed up last night and played Eldith did say he wanted to come back. So he rolled, and I watched the rolls, and he got a 17 on one. We're like, yeah. And then he got like a 4 on another one. We're like, oh. And then everything else is pretty average. So I don't know how he's going to run that. I told him, I said, if you don't want to use those, you can use the standard array or a point buy system. I think you could still make a viable character and have fun with that. So for just one example, you could have a very low charisma, but still have a very viable character. So, we'll see what he does. Like I said, I want to look at the wild magic and the Fair's Rest, and then there's a whole lot of other areas. I have a feeling that they're going to start heading more into the cult-controlled areas. So that's where we're at. That's where things ended. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you next time on the Shane Plays Out of the Abyss notes series. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. I put a lot of, not just these D&D notes, but Let's Plays and other geeky stuff, my radio show. live Geek Talk radio show out of Little Rock, Arkansas. That's actually on terrestrial radio. I put up on YouTube. A lot of cool stuff here. And please like the video. That helps me out a lot. Anyway, thanks so much, and we will catch you next time on Shane Plays.